So today, we're going to unpack this incredible story about a man who retired at 57. And no, it's not because he won the lottery or started some billion-dollar company. He did it by meticulously engineering his entire life as one single, cohesive system, all designed for one thing: stability.
All right, let's just start with one number. Get this, 667 Singapore dollars. That is the total monthly expense for this man, Lin Kang-yan, who's living in Singapore, one of the most expensive cities on the entire planet. I mean, how is that even possible? So if you look at his budget, the biggest chunk, about 37%, is for groceries, because he cooks all his own food. And since he owns his home, there's no rent. But here's the thing, this budget, as wild as it is, it's really just a symptom. The real story here isn't about pinching pennies. It's about the system that makes it all possible in the first place. So yeah, the question isn't just, how does he save so much money? The real question is, what kind of underlying system makes this entire life possible? Because trust me, the answer is way more interesting than just disciplined budgeting.
And this is where it starts to get really interesting. This isn't some guy who's just stopped. No. At 57 years old, he is actively enrolled in a program to study applied generative AI. This is a system that's built from the ground up for continuous evolution.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's meet the man himself, Lin Kang-yan, and really break down the core philosophy that drives this whole thing.
And this quote, this is everything. This is the core idea. Forget chasing that next big thing. Forget high risk, high reward. For Lin, the #1 goal is reliability. He treats his life like a mission-critical piece of software that absolutely cannot be allowed to crash. Stability, that's the prize. So, after 40 years of putting this into practice, he basically boiled his entire system down to these 5 core pillars. It's a model that treats everything, your money, your health, your learning, not as separate things to juggle, but as interconnected parts of one single functioning machine. And being an engineer, of course he came up with a formula to describe it. He says certainty is a function. You know, it's not an accident. When you can identify those meaningful signals in your life and you give them enough time to work their magic, that's when you get stable, predictable results. All right, so how does this actually play out in real life? Let's take a look at his career, which, honestly, if you just glance at it, it looks like the exact opposite of stable. I mean, just look at this list. From the armed forces to semiconductors to property management. At first glance, it looks like a classic case of job hopping, right? Just a bunch of random, disconnected jobs.
But what if it's not random at all? What if what we're actually looking at is a hidden pattern, a deliberate, systematic evolution of his skills over time?
And this is where Lin brings in this really powerful idea, a metaphor to explain his whole journey. He sees his 40-year career through the lens of Darwin's theory of evolution. You see, it was never about climbing some corporate ladder. It was about adapting to the environment to survive and thrive. And what's so cool is how perfectly these principles line up. For variation, he had random learning opportunities, jumping from arts to tech. For selection, it was all about survival of the fittest, learning whatever the workplace demanded to stay valuable. And inheritance, each skill he learned became the foundation, basically the DNA for the next one. Okay, but maybe the most mind-blowing example of his whole system comes from decoding signals hidden deep in his own past. And it all starts with just one photograph. So check this out. This is Lin back in 1991. He's 24 years old, he's posing in front of this gate, and the name of the gate literally translates to Credit Gate. At the time, it was just a random tourist photo. He had no idea how important it would become. But when you look back now, wow, it was basically a prophecy. He spent the next 30-plus years putting his time on credit, so to speak, investing it, all to eventually purchase his freedom. That whole journey started just 2 years after this photo was taken.
And it gets even deeper. You see, decades ago, he picked an online username, Munza Da Hai Dong. Seems like a random string of characters, right? Well, maybe not.
So, get this. Someone fed his life story and his username into an AI, and what came back was this stunning, almost poetic narrative that was hidden there the whole time. The gate from the photo, the great sea of time he crossed, and the eastern shore of retirement he finally reached. It was all encoded in a name he chose ages ago. Just incredible. Okay, so this is all fascinating, right? But what's the takeaway? What can we actually learn from Lin Kang-yan's incredibly engineered life that we can apply to our own? So here they are, the key principles.
First, prioritize stability. Build a system for your life that can't easily collapse. Second, embrace evolution. See your career as a constant process of adaptation, not just a straight line. Third, seek out the signals. Become a detective in your own life and look for the hidden patterns. Fourth, value time. Understand that it's the invisible force that lets everything grow and compound. And finally, systematize everything. Bring it all together, health, finance, learning, into one single well-oiled machine.
And that really leaves us with one last big idea to think about. Lin Kang-yan consciously designed his life as a system. But the thing is, whether you design it on purpose or not, your life is a system too. It has rules, it has inputs and outputs. So the real question to ask yourself is, what are your operating principles?